Hi, this is Karen, and I wanted to highlight for you how you might use state stats to look at the end of the year. So, if you haven't noticed yet, there is a new option here in the help section of the menu called state stats. So, if I click on that, I will get a picture of the United States in hexagons so that I can choose a state to look at. So, if I want to look at, say, Alabama, I can click on that and pull it up. And what this will do is show you the session information, which can always be helpful. And it'll be the beginning of the session and then the proposed ending of the session, unless this says ended, and then it's the actual end of the session. So we will put the projected end of the session until it actually ends, and then that should be the actual date it ended, and then any other sessions that took place or are taking place right now. All right, so that, and then we'll have crossed over date if there is a crossover deadline in this state. All right, so then we'll also show you the basics, which maybe you've looked at this already. For a state that has already finished its session, like Alabama, you'll see how the bills turned out. You'll see how many bills were sponsored by each party and how many were bipartisan, how many bills there were versus resolutions, how many bills are passed or introduced each year, and then down here, how many bills pass each year. So you can look at that to understand a little bit about the state and see any trends. And if you work in a state exclusively, you're probably already aware of this, but maybe the actual percentages will help you. Also, how many resolutions are introduced and passed, and usually those are pretty close together. And then the partisan breakdown of the both chambers together. And then down here is an interesting graphic. So of the bills that got passed this year, so these 360 bills, 70% of them were introduced by Republicans, 135 of them were introduced by Democrats, and 55 of them were introduced by both, had co-sponsors from both parties. All right, but if we look over here, this is a new display. This shows that of the bipartisan bills that were introduced, and we see there's only a few bipartisan bills introduced, even though that made 9%, or sorry, 9% of the total bills passed, still 74% of the bipartisan bills that were introduced got passed. So that lets you know, like, there's years where there's no bipartisan bills. But when there are, then those tend to pass at a pretty high rate. And then we can see that it's actually just about the same for what percentage of bills introduced by Democrats and bills introduced by Republicans got passed, around half of them. So that's the picture for Alabama. Now, if we go to a state that is still in session, so who is still working? Massachusetts. Then we'll see how many bills are in each category. So during the session, this can let you know kind of how the legislature is doing. We'll see how many bills are introduced, 8,000, and passed, 200. So that's helpful information to know. And then you can again see the percentage of bills that get passed, and here exclusively bills introduced by only Democrats pass at a slightly higher rate than bipartisan bills, and then again by Republican bills, but in all cases not a very high percentage pass. Notice that this is just 6% is this line here. So by clicking around here, you can really get a picture of a state. And it looks like Massachusetts is not still in session. Who's still in session? New Jersey certainly is still in session. So there we go. Right, so you can get a picture of the state and get a feeling for what goes down in that state. All right, so hopefully this, if you're starting work in an unfamiliar state, this will give you an idea of what percentages of bills pass overall. And then if you know what kind of bill it is, that might give you some more insight. And additionally, we have these links that we've been working on here, down here, and we hope to add some about the rulemaking process as well, but like the legislative process in this state. So if you want to know some more information about exactly how things work, each state, has their own quirks. So we have the links to the state's own description of their legislative process for every state, plus a bunch of other information. Now, one item of note is this link up here can be seen by anyone. So you can share this link on your website. You can share this link with other people who might like to see this information. So you do not have to be a subscriber to be able to use the state stats, but somebody does have to share a link with you. So we don't have this link out on our website anywhere. So you can see it, you can share it with anyone you want, and they can come in here and explore, and they can change around and look at whatever state they want as well. Oh, and final note, we do have Congress, so that's what that little extra US hexagon is. So if you'd like to look at how things are going across the whole, across federal legislation, then you can take a look at that. All right. So there we go. That is how you might use state stats to get your arms around how a session is going or how it has gone, and the trends, how that compares to past years, to get a picture of what's happened in your state and to give some context to what happened with your bills. All right. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks. Bye.